and whether or not there's feedback processes included in this, as well as during the approval stage, what are the mechanisms that parliaments have in order to make the budget discussion hearings more open to the public, and during the execution phase of the budget, what are the mechanisms that executives have in order to solicit inputs on how the budget is being implemented, and the auditing phase of how auditors around the world have spaces for citizens, public parts, and just regular everyday citizens to provide input on what should be audited in any fiscal year. So if we look here at the figure, is that when we compare OGP and non-OGP countries, is that in transparency, there's a big difference between a 34 compared to 59, but when we compare participation, the difference is not as big. So for non-OGP countries, the average score is 17 points on participation, and it's almost doubled to 36 points. But if the last couple of days we've been discussing about participation and what does that mean and what does it look like, the purpose of participation is to actually have an influence in public policy. And when you have OGP member countries not being as open in the participation process, in particularly the budget process, then we have ways to go, and we have a grand challenge, particularly OGP member countries, on how to make the budget process more open, transparent, and participatory.
Okay, thank you for even using less of your 7 minutes. So now we have Murray Petrie. He works with GIFT and he's the technical advisor. He's going to talk to us about GIFT work and also about the 10 principles that we have been developing and that are still currently in consultation, I think.
Thank you, Harry. I will stand here so I can see my slides. Just very briefly, what is GIFT, in case some of you don't know? GIFT is a multi-stakeholder initiative, we like the OGP. The main stewards of GIFT are the International Budget Partnership, the IMF and World Bank, the International Federation of Accountants, and the governments of Brazil and Philippines. It was launched in 2012. I want to pick up 3 big things I thought that came out from this morning's sessions. I should say it's very good always to follow the IBP. The Open Budget Survey, I think, is a particularly powerful tool that was, I think, going to prove even more powerful in the years ahead. And the OBS is the first of the fiscal transparency tools to try and really measure participation in any depth. So in my presentation, I'm going to talk in some depth about public participation in fiscal policy. And I think this morning one of the key messages was that it's, if the OGP is to be successful and to be sustainable, then governments have to really engage seriously with civil society. We can't be sort of going through the motions, talking to the usual insiders, making it look like it's participation. It's got to be real. But how exactly should states engage with their public? This is what I'm going to be talking about in some detail. Participation is a citizen right, a strong message this morning. And it's also a key to not only to the goal 16 of the SDGs, but all of the So from GIFT's point of view, one of the first things GIFT did was to put in place a set of 10 high-level principles of fiscal transparency, participation, and accountability. And these principles are designed to sit above all the existing standards and norms, and to try and help identify gaps in the existing standards. Sorry, which slide?
You need the next one? Or the...
No, previous. So, high-level principle 10, which was, I think, novel at that stage, was to say that citizens have a right to direct participation in fiscal policy, the design and the implementation. These 10 high-level principles were subsequently endorsed by the UN General Assembly, but when we then sort of started to think about what does this mean in practice, what are the existing standards and norms, we found there really is a gap in this area in terms of guidance on how governments should engage on fiscal policy. So what's the scope before we talk about it? How do we define fiscal policy? Well, it's in broad terms, in the sense it's not only the end of the budget cycle, which is what most people think of budget transparency, but it's also policies around taxation and spending, and assets and liabilities. I've bolded revenues and assets and liabilities because most of the space is focused on spending. And spending is extremely important, but an awful lot of what governments do in the fiscal area is put putting their hands in every citizen's pocket, taking tax revenues, and managing very large assets and liabilities. We also consider the fiscal policy covers the design and delivery of public services to private public services paid for by taxes and similar to public investment programs. So it's a wide ambit, and basically this is, most of it is 20, 30, 40, 50% of GDP that we're talking about here. So it's very important. So just very quickly, this public participation has varying depths. We all know that this is a commonly used spectrum to sort of show the increasing depth of participation. The OGP Secretariat uses this in classifying national action plans. At the left-hand end, it's not really participation at all, it's just informing. I think some of the first action plans is designed inside government and then announced, consult, announce possible new policy that you consult over. I won't go through some details because I run out of time. But some of the deeper levels, co-creation of an action plan for OGP will be elaborated. Then at the far end, we have some of the examples of participatory budgeting. Many subnational governments do this. Philippines has pioneered this at the national level, and mechanisms like EITI. Thanks. So very quickly, some examples of participation from OGP action plans. This is participation fiscal policy. So Ghana said we will consult on a new Fiscal Responsibility Act and will prepare guidelines for deepening civil society participation in planning and budgeting. Dozens or so countries either joining or strengthening their involvement with EITI. Guatemala's committed to join the construction sector transparency initiative, COST, which is another multi-stakeholder initiative, a bit like EITI. A few further examples: the Philippines engaging citizens in public audits and participatory auditing has been pioneered in the Philippines. Finland promoting participatory budgeting, looking for pilot both national government and local governments. And Costa Rica, a commitment around improving public services, complaints channels to citizens and suggestions for improving public services. Okay, so because of the importance of this issue, GIFT has launched quite a large work program on public participation. We've done 8 country case studies to try and find out what countries are doing on the ground. They're all completed on our website. We've held numerous regional workshops on these principles and on case studies in different parts of the world. We've developed a trial measurement instrument to measure public participation in fiscal policy. It's being trialed at the moment in the Philippines. This is a supplementary key indicator. And we've developed draft principles of participation that I will quickly run through. And we're also developing good practices. So it's not just that we've got these principles that are going to be floating around. We're trying to develop good practices for the executive, for the legislature, and the Supreme Order institution in how they should engage the public and when they should engage in terms of fiscal policy, budget and fiscal policy. So very quickly, I'll run through these principles very quickly. In some sense, they're self-evident, but we're very keen on feedback. They're on our website right now. The consultation is at the end of October, but we would be very happy to hear from any of you in November or December as well on this. So the first principle, inclusiveness, non-discrimination, making sure that groups and voices that aren't being heard are heard. I won't mention examples from another time. Principle 2, participation should be direct, so CSOs play a very valuable role, but we want to hear the voices of individuals and the public directly where possible. Participation should be open, so be open about the purpose, the intended outcomes, the process and the timelines. An example there, the OGP guidelines for development of national action plans. Participation should be timely, this is obvious, but allow sufficient time and budget and policy cycles. Principle 5, participation should be facilitated in general by disclosing fiscal information in ways that is easily understandable, easily accessible, so this is things like citizen guides, open data formats, visualization techniques, etc. Principle 6 is more specific. Each participation exercise, engagement exercise should be well informed by providing specific background information, highlighting the key policy choices, increased spending on this, you may have to cut it somewhere else, increased taxes, or whatever. And sorry, just to go back briefly for principle 7.